This thing makes people turn on you on the flip of a hat, and neither one of you probably consciously know why. And this is something that I know I have done multiple times without realizing it in the moment. However, now that I know about this thing, I'm able to inhibit this from being a pattern and from causing disconnection in my relationships long term. Here's where I got this idea before I go into it. David Ghiyam has this online class. It has to do with Kabbalah. So I started taking it because I really love the episode he did on the Lewis Howes School of Greatness podcast about manifestation. It really resonated with me on a soul level. So I'll go ahead and link that so you can watch it as well if you want to. But anyway, in this course, he talks about the energy behind messages. So this could be a text message. It could be reaching out to ask someone how they are, calling to check in. We're probably aware that this is a nuance. It's one thing to do the action to be more connected. It's another thing to do the action when there is a desire for external validation. So let's say if you're reaching out because you're not really sure where you stand in that friendship or in that dynamic, and you feel like they're pulling away, and there's this sense of sort of fear that's underneath the surface of, hey, how are you? It sounds simple and it sounds innocent enough. People do this all the time. However, if the energy behind it is an energy of lack and an energy of a lack of clarity, a lack of certainty, a lack of goodness, a lack of feeling good, then that is going to be translated on a subconscious level. So when it comes to asking a question, asking for clarification, it's not to say don't have these sticky situations, but it is a call for spending more time in solitude so that you can emotionally collect yourself and get to a place where you feel like you're coming from genuine curiosity, a genuine desire to connect versus having someone kind of confirm what you already thought. Or let's say if you feel like this friendship doesn't exist and you're reaching out like, hey, like happy holidays or whatever it is, but the energy behind it is, ooh, we're not really friends anymore. Don't do it. And I know it can be hard because sometimes we can ask ourselves, wait a second, what is actually real? Am I just overthinking this thing? And maybe they'll just confirm that I was wrong when I send this message. But then how many times are you actually not proven wrong when you reach out in that capacity? So this is really a call to take your power back and to be so intentional about the energy that you bring out into the world and with other people that whether you get, a positive response or not, you're not putting parameters or expectations on how other people should reply or respond to you because you know how you feel. And if you feel a weird energy about someone, you're not going to reach out to them to try to make it okay. You're going to identify what it is within yourself that is triggered and ideally get clarity on that trigger within yourself, then reach out to that person or not, depending on if you can get to a really pure intentionality and emotional state. Another thing that David goes into in the course so far, I'm about a quarter of the way through, so I'm sure I could create more content on this if it's of interest to you. But he talks about never leaving your front door with a seeking energy. For example, some people may leave their front door with this intention of, okay, I'm going to meet someone tonight, or I'm going to this dating event or networking event. I'm going to get a client. I'm going to get this. And that is a seeking energy, obviously, where that's not fully owning how you show up. And he says no one should leave their front door without a genuine sense of excitement and openness to not just taking from people. And you may say, oh, but wait, getting a client, like I'm actually giving them a result. It's not taking, but notice how your intention is, oh, like I want them to hire me. It is a me focus. So if you're instead able to get into this mindset of, I'm curious who I'm going to meet and how I can support them. And in so many relationship contexts, whether it's business, whether it's romantic, whether it's friendship, we've heard this before that, oh, certainly focus on what you have to give, because not only is that where your power lies and what you have control over, what you don't have control over is how receptive others are. So this is something David brings up as well. That can even be, if you have the intention to give, that can be a taking energy because what if the person in front of you doesn't want it? What if they're not interested? Then there could be a sense of disappointment or being upset because you're not being received when it's like, okay, who is the receiving or who is the giving going to benefit anyway? Was that actually just for your benefit? So these are nuances that on a deep level we are likely aware of, but to have it spelled out in a certain way can help us become more aware of what it really means to manage your energy. So, this may have you taking fewer actions. And this isn't the same as, oh, if you feel nervous, like don't do it, because nerves, there are two sides, right? Nerves could be there for your benefit because it's really out of alignment. It's having your logic play with the energy and the emotions that you are experiencing. You may want to determine, okay, what is the underlying feeling? And if you're able to trace it at the root to a sense of love versus a sense of fear, where, oh, making this decision, even if it's uncomfortable, ultimately it's because there's love for this form of expression or this form of being in the world, then maybe you want to go ahead and do that. Versus, let's say, if you're declining a particular invitation or if you are taking an action and you feel like, oh, I just have to do this, and then it'll keep this other bad thing from happening. That's not the vibe. It's going to feel most expansive and most connected with other people to be able to take an action with a sense of curiosity, openness, and wonder that's authentic to you. And if you're not yet in that state, meditating or journaling and simply getting yourself into that state, you may find that you have more people actually reaching out to you versus needing to be the one that instigates and initiates as much because you're simply leading with this energy that is quite frankly magnetic, that not everyone takes the time to really fine tune when they're out in the world or when they are sending a message. So there is no going back when you make this social mistake of reaching out with the intention of getting versus receiving, even if in a three-dimensional viewpoint, it looks like you're giving. If there's that graspy, leaky sort of energy, then people may feel the ick and turn on you and close doors. So this is really a call to, especially if you have been reaching out from a place that feels a little desperate, and you'll know if you were feeling that way. This can happen in chapters where there's added vulnerability. Maybe if you were let go from a job, if you were recently broken up with, if any of the classic rejections have occurred, then that can cause some people, maybe yourself, to reach out and try to get validation from another source, when really the most powerful thing you can do is to sit with it and not just sulk in it, but to allow yourself to get curious around the opposite, because whatever we experience, the depths and the highest highs, that shows us that level of energy is what we're capable of. And we can actually transmute it and transition it into something else. It is showing us the mirror image. So it's not something to be upset about. Another thing that he talks about is actually saying thank you and being happy when something bad happens, because it's likely not permanent no matter how we currently perceive the situation. That's less about wishing for or praying for the ideal scenario or person to come to you, and more about being the vessel that can hold it. If our bodies are vessels for energy, for people to either be attracted to us or repelled by us, and if you feel like there is some resentment and anger or guilt that is currently filling the space that ideally could have a bit more lightness to it, then it's up to you to take actions to lighten your own load. I'd like to invite you to think back to times when you did have a lightness about you, not to be confused with toxic positivity. But there are times when you probably felt really connected and in flow, and things are just getting better, and these invitations are pouring in. So It's not looking back to wish that it was the same because it cannot be the same. That time has passed and you can have gratitude for it. However, there are clues for you, both in the highest highs and the lowest lows. And if you would like to have more of the highest highs, you can take a look at both to get a roadmap for your next steps that you can begin to emulate and embody in your life. Wishing you a wonderfully connected day. Until next time.